Hi, everyone. This is Kathleen of Interviews by Kathleen, and I have with me a delightful author. Her name is Lauren Buckingham, and she is a mystery writer. She's an excellent one. She's also done the done an article in our newsletter for the Transcendent Authors. So if you are interested in that, you want to give us a call. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren because I want her to tell you where she's from, how she got into writing, and what influenced her the most.
Hello, my name is Lauren Buckingham. I am a writer. I live in the Phoenix area. I'm originally from Ohio, but I've lived in Phoenix. It'll be 20 years next month. So I'm not a native Arizonan, but I've been here a long time.
And how did you get into writing?
I can't remember a time when I wasn't writing. I really think I was creating stories in my head even before I knew how to write. Like I have an early memory of getting my Fisher Price dollhouse when I was about 3 years old and playing with it and coming up with little stories in my head for the little doll people that came
Uh-huh.
with the set. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember any of those stories, but I remember that's what I would do with my toys. And then when I finally got old enough to write, I was just writing things down, and it may not have made any sense at the time, but I was always coming up with these little stories and then putting them to paper. I think the first story I have that I actually wrote was when I was in kindergarten, about like how I was upset that one of the kids in my class took the last orange lollipop when I gave out candy in class.
Orange was your favorite, I take it.
Yeah, so even then I was drawing from real life.
Well, that is incredible. And speaking of that, do you, your mysteries that you like to write, are they drawn from real life or
Sometimes,
are
yes.
they, okay? Can you,
Oh,
can you tell us about one of them?
well, so yes, like they're not exactly completely based on real life, but I like draw from things and like things in the news, like the one that was most recently published in the Sisters in Crime anthology in 2023, um, which I'm currently working on a novel based on these characters. While it wasn't taken from any one story in the news, it was about a crooked securities company and a CEO who murdered his brother, who was also in the company, and made it look like a suicide. And it turned out they were stealing from investors and like a lot of corporate corruption there. And the heroine of the story was an anonymous source. So she was working within the company, digging up dirt on them and exposing them to a reporter. And that's kind of where it starts. So while it wasn't based on any one particular thing, there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, I can understand that. Believe it or not, even though I write science fiction and I deal with aliens and stuff, I still put something of reality in there. Either the pain one of them is overcoming or has faced, or family relations, something that could be devastating or wonderful for them. Because it helps, I think, don't you think it helps the reader find
Oh,
foundation in the story and identification?
absolutely.
And what are your plans for your writing?
Well, so I actually didn't start pursuing writing professionally until I was in my 30s. It was something I always liked to do. And I thought, well, maybe someday I could do as a career, but I didn't start like really um, looking into what goes into being a professional writer until, like I said, in my 30s. And so I had actually heard that short stories were a good way to start and to like get some publishing credits. And I enjoy writing those anyway. So I started sending those out. Not all of them were mysteries. Some would be maybe more in the literary genre, and some are more thriller than mystery, and or could be considered drama.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it's like I like playing around with a lot of different genres and writing different stuff. It's just like it's like mostly mystery that I've been published in.
Okay. I mentioned earlier that you wrote one of the articles for the newsletter that's coming
Mhm.
out next week. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So
And
yes, my oh, go ahead.
no, go
My
ahead.
my topic was unlikable protagonists because a lot of times when you read a story, the protagonist doesn't always make good decisions, but sometimes that's part of the story. Like sometimes bad decisions make for good storytelling, and sometimes the protagonist themselves isn't such a nice person. In fact, sometimes they're terrible, but still, you have to give the reader something to make them either love to hate the character or want to keep reading. And in the article, I do cite like several examples, like the ones I mentioned are Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye, Amy Dunn of Gone Girl, Elizabeth Salander of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Excuse me, on that whole series. And then I finished with a classic book called Madame Bovary that like I actually heard about in reading a book on writing, and like the character just sounded like so awful. I wanted to read about her. And so I do mention how sometimes there could be a character like that that just really doesn't have any redeeming qualities, but you still want to see just like how bad it can get.
Hmm.
I even mentioned in the article that, like, I kept hoping through the book she would change her ways, but she didn't. And that's kind of what leads to the story's conclusion.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how much we love to hate or hope so much. We can identify so strongly with a character that we hope that they can change, that they can, like I mentioned earlier before we started about Sherlock Holmes,
Mm-hmm.
and if he could have made himself more approachable, what
Mm-hmm.
would he have been like? What would his adventures have been like?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than this rough, yeah, I don't want to talk to you, rah, 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 rah. And it took Dr. Watson to make the way for people to him.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And but then you still wonder, would he still be Sherlock Holmes? Would he still
yeah,
have the same kind of
yeah,
appeal?
yeah, exactly. And you look at some of the even the detectives now on some of the TV shows. There's one of my favorite ones is oh oh gosh, it's a brand new one. And the guy has dyslexia.
Hmm.
And he's abrupt. He was beaten, tortured as a kid, in the foster system, all of that stuff. But he still came out with a heart of gold, even though he had this failing and he had to depend on other people. So it's just such the, the little things like that makes a character. What is the next thing that you're going to write, if you tell us?
Actually, yeah.
And what is your main protagonist like?
Okay, well, so that's sort of a two-part question. So I was going to say the next thing I'm going to write is the story for the Transcendent Authors anthology that's coming up, but I haven't selected an idea yet. I've narrowed it down to some, and I'm going to start working on it like this month, like within the
Mm-hmm.
next week. But I have to first like decide which idea I'm going with. So I'll go with the other story that I'm working on. It's a short
Okay.
story. I'm thinking of submitting it to like it's going to be like a mystery, and I'm thinking of submitting it to magazines such as Ellery Queen, and which I've never been published in before, but I've tried. But so the protagonist is going to be like I don't want to give away a lot about the story, but the protagonist is going to be a young, I think she's going to be a paralegal, or she's not an attorney and she's not a detective, but she's an employee of a law firm, and she's going to be investigating a crime that occurs at the law firm.
Oh,
And
cool.
she's going to be like very young and adventurous, a little naive, I kind of think, just from the impression I'm getting of her so far, but like very like hungry for adventure and like wants to do big things in the world, but doesn't really know where to start. And this kind of gives her an opportunity, to do something big.
Are you in, for the audience, there are, I think, three main types of writers. Those that are discovery, some people call them planters. Those that are planters, which are a combination of a pantser and an outliner, or an outliner.
I think I'm more that second one. Like there have been some stories that have been completely pantser, others that have been just very meticulously planned, where there's an outline, but I think I'm more in the middle. Like I will make a plan, like a basic plan, sometimes even an outline, but I don't necessarily stick to it. Sometimes I will go off in another direction.
Yeah, I'm a discoverer, but I still have three things. I have the beginning, the middle, and the end. I
Yes.
usually know those. Sometimes the ending does change, depends upon what happens in the story. Um, do your characters ever frustrate you?
Sometimes, yes.
What do you do when they do?
Well, it depends on in like what way they're frustrating me. If they're frustrating me just because I can't seem to get the feel of the character, then I try to like break it down more and kind of figure out why I can't really give them a voice. So there's that level of frustration, or sometimes it's on purpose. The characters will do stuff that would be like so maddening that, like I said, if you knew them in real life you wouldn't like them, but it does serve the story and you just think, why don't they do it this way, or why don't they do that? But I kind of want the reader to get frustrated along with them too, because that, like I said, that furthers the story.
Now, you mentioned that you didn't start writing until you were in your 30s.
Oh, I've been writing all along, just not
Well,
pursuing it
I meant
professionally.
yeah, yeah, but professionally. I was going to ask you because you're working full time, correct?
Yes.
See, I'm one of those fortunate people that are not working professionally, other than writing and doing this. So I was going to ask, how do you work it into your day?
One thing I do is I take advantage of my lunch hour at work. There's a little cafe in the building where I work. I will go down there like with my notebooks and my notes, and I'll get as much writing done as I can while I'm having lunch. And or sometimes I'll be like on my break. Sometimes I'll even like sit at my cubicle and get some work done. And then at home, I just kind of fit it around the other things. Like sometimes we'll just, be chilling in the living room and I'll have my notebook out with me, or, like while I'm waiting for laundry to get done, and yeah, or definitely like on weekends. Saturdays, I will like spend a lot of time writing, and but also, just I just kind of fit it in between like all the other things in life, I guess.
I
That doesn't makes it hard to have a set schedule, but I can still like find ways to get it done.
Yes, and that's what I admire so much about you. When I was working full time, I there was so many things to do, so much to do, even if I had wanted to. Um, I my clock was full, so it was fortunate that I didn't start writing until, let's see, 2019, 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
hmm So
That's
it,
impressive. You've accomplished a lot since then.
I'm I'm a go-getter, so to speak, is what my dad said. So, but I want to know what your biggest advice would be to somebody who is just starting to write professionally or beginning to feel around it in your same situation.
I would say, keep at it, find your passion, find the times when you're most passionate, and use your free time, maximize it as much as you can. Like, I even told a story on the panel about how we had taken our dog for a checkup at the vet, and while he was in the exam room with the vet, I was using that time to brainstorm a story.
Good. That's so smart. I have another friend. She wasn't able to be there, and she is the mystery writer. She has 28 books out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she carries a yellow legal pad with her wherever she goes. She
I have a
might,
notebook. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I have a
no,
notebook like that too. In fact, I think I have it here. If I could show it to you,
yeah,
I
there.
don't know if you can see what it says on it. It literally says this and that. Now, that's not so much the notebook I use for brainstorming stories because I've got dozens of those. But this is one where I just write down like little bits of dialogue that I think are funny or that are profound, not always funny, sometimes very serious, or just like little things that come to my head. Like, what was one that I just thought of? Oh, just for some reason I was thinking like of either like this could be like a tagline or a something in a story. Somebody says the deep end awaits.
Ooh,
Like they're going through something and they feel like they're about
ooh,
to go off the deep end, and
yeah,
they either make that as a sarcastic remark or one of those things that, maybe they're kidding and maybe they're not.
yeah. It's like a prompt
Yes.
because that would be an excellent start for a story.
Mhm.
One of the groups I meet with at a group of writers, we usually do a prompt and we have 15 minutes to write and then we read them. And some of us have complete stories and some don't in that 15 minutes. But it's interesting. In fact, one guy is using all of his stories to create a collection of stories.
Hmm.
So, your little sayings. Another thing that I found was an author had put together, she was a romance writer. She had put together all of her little nuances and others that she heard and cataloged them in a book for other authors to use.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was too. So, that's something that you're already starting to do. It's incredibly smart, but then you are smart, or you
Thank
wouldn't
you.
be able to do what you're doing because uh, ladies and gentlemen, she truly is a delight to be around. We had a wonderful
Thank
time
you.
talking on a break during the conference, a break we had to make in the conference
Yes.
for a few minutes, but it was a good time and a delightful, and from that we formed a friendship, and I am grateful for that. Now, when do you expect your next short, not the one for Transcendent, but the one that you're thinking of submitting? When do you expect that to be finished?
I hope to be done with it by the end of the month.
Okay.
So
And
then I can really dig in on the transcendent author story.
I can't wait to see what that's going to be because I just really, she wrote about, we talked earlier about a protagonist that is not a smooth character. They've got a lot of bumps in their life, so to speak. Um, and that's a practical application. And it's so needed for people that you can't have your own protagonist without some kind of failing because otherwise to me you don't get the arc that you need. Do you feel that way also?
Yeah, I do.
No.
And it's nice to see protagonists change too over time. Like maybe they can start out awful and end up better. But I think what would be really interesting to see, off the top of my head, I can't think of any examples of this, but I know I've seen them where maybe a protagonist starts off good and then they turn bad. I find that fascinating as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen protagonists that appear to be good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the the Simon Legree, but he's not twirling his mustache yet. So, and I've not done that with any of mine, but I'm not a mystery writer either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a romance. And I always have either a happy ending or a happy ending for now.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I'm
always good.
I'm an optimist. And I think that I do have a mystery I've been working on a little bit here and a little bit there, but it's going to have a happy ever after because it's going to have a romance in it. So I'll bring it to you and let you take a look at it.
Oh, great. I would love that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been delightful to have you join Lauren and I today and listen to our interview. And if you have any questions, after we finish, there will be a slide with the information on how to contact Lauren and how to contact me. And we will be available to answer those. And you will be able to find us. Okay. Thank you again for joining us. And until next time, have a wonderful day, evening, or week. And or.
Thank you.
Bye.